All right. Yes, Yacoub. Thank you for coming and honoring the invite. I know it has been long overdue that we have this conversation on the podcast. I have been looking extensively at some of your work, but before we start, I'll let you introduce yourself to me. And from that introduction is how I will, of course, drive a measure of the conversations and pick from that how to direct from all these topics we're going to cover, right? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mark, for hosting me. Yeah, it has been a long time coming. My name is Yacoub, Dr. Yacoub. I'm a medical doctor, scientist, passionate about philosophy, psychology, and wide range of topics.
Yeah.
I have co-founded a startup called Vigilant Living, which offers psychological counseling and behavioral coaching. We focus on people who are trying to achieve longevity, productivity, and meaningfulness in their lives.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad to be here.
Good.
I'm looking forward to a mind-stimulating conversation.
All right. I hope we have that one. So we'll just start right there. How do you define life, really? What's your meaning of life? And how does that inform your perspective to life?
Wow.
How does your meaning to life inform your perspective to living?
Okay. I guess we've started with the heavy questions. Life. I would say life, mainly those three concepts which I've mentioned, is all about living long, but not just living long, to also have healthy life. Because there's no point of being alive when like you're a vegetable on some sort of a bed or a hospital. Likewise, you have to also have contributed to society, which is now the aspect of productivity. You can be alive physically, but you can be socially dead.
Yeah.
It means you are just redundant. And then lastly, the aspect of meaning, which is the trickiest of all, has to do with how we feel about the lives we have lived. The concept of regret. What does it mean to be regretful on your last days, on that final moments? I think mainly I would say those three concepts perhaps encompass living to me.
And that is exactly what informs how you live, right?
Yeah.
Do you live with fear of regret?
Well, I would say it's my biggest motivator and a driver, to live a life free of regret. I read a book by a nurse who was she was a palliative nurse, I think somewhere in Australia, where she talked about what she called the 5 regrets of a dying person. And mainly one was regret of not following your dreams, not keeping up with your friends. One was to do with family, and none had to do with money, ironically. So, yeah, I would say regret should be if not our number one, but at least top 3 motivators, Because why else would you wake up in the morning without having that sort of a purpose behind your actions?
So, to work around regret, you have to extensively care about personal development. Do you ever feel like personal development is some sort of burden?
Yeah, I would say it's the burden of existence itself is that we have to grow. Like, we start from, let me say, a child to an adolescent.
Yeah.
But that growth comes with a lot of suffering. Let me put it that way: a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. But you can only find the meaning after you're going through the suffering. So there's no pain, no gain. Let me put it that way. So yeah, it's a lot of burden, but it's a burden which we have to take upon that responsibility to live a meaningful life.
How do you? The question there could be: how do we then navigate the dissonance between our personal growth, our personal development, and just living without regret?
I would like to quote one of the famous philosopher.
Yeah.
He was called Kierkegaard, Søren Kierkegaard. He was a philosopher from Denmark. What he said is, get married and you'll regret it. Don't get married and you'll also regret it. Do this, you'll regret it. Do that, you'll also regret it.
Yeah.
And that's the essence of philosophy. So yes, whatever we do, we will still find a way to regret it. I'll just say the difference is there's a perhaps the kind of regret which can keep us awake, and then these minor small issues. And that regret of which keeps us awake at night, which puts us under even what we call the mental illnesses, whether depression, whether anxiety, consequence of we all have that potential, and the fact that we fail to achieve that potential, it's like some of ghosts come and hunt us at night. So yeah, you are supposed to be that person, that great person, whatever field, whatever trade you are in, whether it's arts, whether it's medical field, whether it's an academia, you all had that potential for greatness, but the failure to take it, you can still try and fail, but that's far better than not even attempting. Yeah.
So, in a world obsessed with optimization, how can we embrace the messy and unpredictable aspects of being human?
Well, I would say the concept of optimization sort of has a connotation of comparing us human beings to machines.
Yeah.
Yes, what does it mean to be optimum? I mean, this laptop, this sound system is working optimally. But a human being, by our existence, we are not optimum beings. We are chaotic, we are emotional. And in fact, I dare say we are more emotional than logical. Literally, coming to the brain, the parts of the brain which is governs the rest of the brain, it's not actually the frontal lobe or the part which we call the executive or the part which makes us think. It's actually the emotional part of the limbic system. So actually the emotions, it's also called the monkey brain, actually has more power over the mind. And you might say the frontal lobe justifies it. So you might want to do something, that part which is more primal wants to do something, but the frontal lobe can now make it rational. Oh, I'm doing it because of this, it's philanthropy, but you might just be greedy. Yeah. Yes, but you can find a way to justify it.
Do you ever get nightmares?
Wow. Nightmares, I would say less, but growing up, I had a lot of nightmares. I had actually a lot, mainly religious nightmares. So that experience I had with nightmares made me more secular and more. I had to ignore. I had to pretend like, those things are not real. It's just a dream, and slowly faded away. The nightmares, or perhaps the nightmares are there. It just maybe how they impacted me.
So that was going to be my other connection. How did they impact you? Actually, to just put it for you straight is, what do the nightmares? What were they telling you about yourself? Did you ever realize that connection of your dreams probably speaking to you? And
well, I guess we are stepping in dangerous zones, considering the world of dreams. It's still a mystery to some extent, at least scientifically. So it can be described as pseudoscience, talk about dreams. But I would say I'm an ardent follower of Carl Jung and the Jungian psychology, which is a product of Freud. So dreams are real. In fact, I dare say dreams can be more real than the reality itself. Because dreams, it's like, if I go to the Jungian psychology, I would say the way he described it is the unconscious is how we live.
Yeah.
Yes, actually, the conscious is just like maybe less than 5-10% of our life. Almost all of our life is actually the unconscious. And dreams is how we tap into the unconscious world. Yeah, though the unconscious world itself can come out when we are awake, kind of like you can be possessed, but the dreams is how we sort of interact with the different dimension, or different frequency. Let me put it this way. Yes, I believe there are frequencies beyond this material frequency. So dream is how we tap into that other world.
So were your nightmares speaking to you? And if yes, can you explain that? What were they saying to you? What were you making sense of that? Did it ever matter?
I would say most of those nightmares I had, especially when I was growing up, a lot of them I've forgotten. However, in the last few years, the majority of dreams or the nightmares. First, I would like to dispute the word nightmare itself. Because, yes, nightmare already has the presumption that it's already bad. When actually dream does not necessarily have that demarcation. It's not a binary. It's not good or bad. We don't exactly know what the dream is because
we just live through it.
Yeah, we just live through it. Yeah. Now there's what you call night terror, which is a bit different in the psychological terminology and psychiatry. Is that a night terror is something which wakes you up, but you forget about what that was. So yeah, that one is a bit different, which is a bit extreme than a nightmare, or just perhaps a bad dream.
Okay.
Yeah, because the world of the dreams or the world of the archetypes, I believe you'll ask that one also, is like, it's not the reality we are living in, how we sort of look at it. It's not that like touching this world. It's not like you're touching a world which is physical. The way it is, it's sort of abstract in a way that we cannot explain it with our own. A lot of it can be just a personal to you, like experience. Your dream could just be to you, not no one else can explain it. Some of it perhaps might be a bit more general to everyone. So it's not exactly as descriptive as you had a dream of a car accident and you're going to have a car accident.
I hear you. So, as CEO of Vigilant Living, I want you to expound more on holistic well-being and maybe just explain how that impacts different dimensions of our well-being, right? Maybe physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
Yeah, I would like first to trace back on even my beginning, why the Vigilant Living and why we do it and how we came to this aspect. So in medical school, the knowledge where I have acquired was mainly to do with treating the body, healing the body, but just as a body. So there was no conception of the mind. Forget about the soul. So it was just like the body heals. You give the antibiotic, you do an operation, the body heals. However, the more I read, the more I questioned, the more I came to appreciate the body itself is not just on its own, but actually the mind and the spirit, for that matter, and even the society we live in have more to do with our body than on its own. So it's not just an island, but it's that whole. It's a whole on its own. And the holistic definition, for that matter, yes, to be whole, it's both sacred because it's not actually the WH whole. It's just H whole. So it's holy. The body is holy. There's a spirit. There's an element of the mind, the psyche, the unconscious I've just been talking about, and trying to work on all those dimensions, trying to have some sort of a harmony. You cannot have the physical, the financial, the occupational, the spiritual, all of them perfect at the same time, but at least trying to put as much as harmony between all of them will prevent you from the disharmony, and which can, we might say, result in a medical illness. Whether it's the mental illnesses, whether it's the substance abuse and addiction, but even physical illnesses, because as we know, lifestyle diseases, you have diabetes, you have obesity these days, hypertension. So all these are consequence of, to some extent, the lack of proper physical activity, proper dieting, sleep, healthy recreational activities or fun, perhaps the financial and occupational stresses. So the holistic and having a life which is a bit more holistic also, I would say, reduces the life, having a life of regret to some extent,
You're really, really, really about a life of regret. So do you feel like a growth mindset contributes to happiness?
Yes, you said it perfectly. The growth mindset. There's a book called the Growth. I think it's Growth Mindset by Carl Jung, which is all about life. We go through challenges, we go through struggles. Those struggles are the things which are supposed to help us grow. And the importance of having that kind of a mindset, that growth mindset, is what separates us from stagnation.
So you believe mostly, majorly, life is a sequence of suffering?
I'll put it that way, yes. Life is a sequence of challenges. Life is more like a game, just like Monster. You overcome that one. Next step, so zombie. Yes, exactly. You keep on climbing before perhaps you win the whole thing.
Okay. Uh, so I'm going to go slightly a little bit into now societal challenges. This was so much about the personal growth. Unless there's something about vigilant living, you'd want us to know some information on vigilant living and why this startup is in existence. Maybe.
Yeah, thank you. I'll say the main purpose behind it is we, to some extent, are trying to offer that care. There's a question you asked, which was about optimization.
Yeah.
As human beings, we are not optimum to some extent. That means we are not objective. Yes, we have an objective. Someone either has perhaps cancer or not, or kidney disease or not, but our feelings inside, or what we call our subjective well-being, is so unique to all of us that cannot be ignored. I could come and perhaps prescribe for you a medication for your headache, but is that headache just an illness, or it's perhaps your rent is due? Yeah, so why don't you talk about that issue? Perhaps your child is sick, perhaps you're having struggles at work, you're not making friends. So in a sense, the aspect...
Hold up.
Yes.
If my rent is due...
Yes.
And it causes a headache, are you saying there's better medication for that headache than the tablets for headache?
I will say the tablets might solve the headache, but not the problem itself.
Yes, of course the tablets are not going to pay the rent.
So the problem itself can be discussed, can be unwinded. In that state of the emotional, let me say, the anxiety itself, you might not be able to look at it clearly. Mm-hmm. But just to have that ability for counseling, to sit down, to talk through it, to look at the options, to assess the priorities, will probably be the better medicine than looking for, a painkiller, for that matter. So the other aspect is the aspect of habits and behaviors. How do our habits impact our life? You might say every medical illness, almost all of them are as consequence of a habit, a sort of a kind of a habit. What's a habit? A habit is something we do routinely. Yeah. So trying to work on these habits, trying to work on these behaviors. As it's a new year, almost everyone has a new year resolution. This year I'm going to work out. I'm going to work on getting financial freedom.
Sleep more.
Yeah. But it's not just a wish. It's like actions. It's a habit which requires a level of accountability, a level of perhaps guidance.
And determination and probably consistency in there.
Exactly.
So what do you think about sleep?
Yeah, sleep is...
Well, of course, it's obvious. It's very important. This is how maybe...
It might not be obvious, actually, yeah. Yes, it's a great question because it might not be obvious. We assume sleep is just like taking a nap, laying down. But sleep is actually what keeps us who we are, what keeps us alive. It's, as we talked about, dreams.
Yeah.
But even in a neurological sense, or the brain as a matter, this when our memories are consolidated, is when our brain grows.
When you say brain grows,
yes,
what does that mean specifically? Like,
all right,
what's growth of brain? Is it how much information I'm feeding it to know? Is that how it grows? Or, like from the doctor's perspective, let me first understand growth of brain.
Yeah, that's a good question. Our brain is made up of, actually, is a recent discovery, perhaps is less than a decade, maybe a bit older, where there's what they call mirror neurons. Mm-hmm. Came to realize a lot of our brain cells, especially in the frontal lobe or this front part, is like mirrors. Yeah, so they it's just like a mirror. They absorb what they see, and from there they grow. So yes, the information you consume, as you said, will be the growth you achieve. Likewise with addiction, because addiction is literally you have grown a new part of your brain, which is now an addict for that matter. Yeah. So yes, the brain keeps on growing, or it dies off, which is now what we call dementia. You find old people, yes. Now the brain starts going the reverse direction. So yeah, our brain needs that growth.
And then Alzheimer's is what?
So Alzheimer's is a form of dementia.
Okay.
Yeah. There are types of dementia. So Alzheimer's is the one which... It's
where you've...
Yeah. Anyway, it's a bit of it had some controversies. But anyway, Alzheimer's mainly
Where you forget, I think.
Yeah, so dementia itself is forgetfulness.
Okay.
Yeah, though it's not just a forgetfulness, which is amnesia, but it's a continually deteriorating forgetfulness till one day you even don't know how to stand up, how to put clothes, how to have some sort of a continence.
Yeah.
And forgetting names. So it's more of a deteriorating one. That's why it's called neurodegeneration. So the brain dies off, and when it starts happening, it's a slippery slope. Yeah. So Alzheimer's is the commonest.
Commonest form of dementia, right?
Yeah, commonest form of dementia. Yeah.
Okay.
Just what makes it unique is that there are things which are called plaques which are found on the brain. So postmortem is like after the person passes away, taken to the morgue, they open them up, you'll find some white plaques, inside the brain.
All right. So do you believe modern sleep aids and technologies have eroded our natural connection to the rhythm of sleep and wakefulness?
Well, it did, yeah. I mean, just this gadget, the phone has literally sort of a...
But these days,
okay.
Before I sleep, right?
Yeah.
I like to play green sound, and it really helps me sleep better.
Yeah.
So the times I play it in my house when I'm going to sleep, and it just keeps playing. It's just like playing maybe music at 43.3 hertz, like maybe that Andre new album, that type of music. So what's that connection? Because maybe that's aiding in a better way, right? Because when I play the green sound and I've been lacking sleep, which is now a common thing, because of course the phone is there, the addiction to screen time, and maybe because we feel like there's so much going on we have to be a part of, so we have so much time to waste on all these things. But yes, I would say for me that is how it helps me. Screen, I play the green sound. But then from your perspective, how have these new technologies aided our sleeping patterns?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll say likewise. I also listen to podcasts, including yours, once in a while, when I'm trying to also to get to sleep. So, well, I don't know whether I will say that's a good thing in a sense. Perhaps we have also become addicted to some help, because the sleep which was supposed to be natural.
Natural sleep.
Because of the phone, because of that FOMO itself, we find it hard, even our brains. And the reason why, like, when you wake up from sleep, as you said, like, the sleep in this modernity has been a challenge. You may not even feel you have rested enough, because you have not even actually went to what we call the REM sleep, which is like deep sleep.
Yeah.
It might have just been superficial, and you just wake up. So you have not exactly been getting the whole depth of sleep. Yeah.
So it's a bad thing. What do you think is a solution people can go to?
Well, I mean, an obvious...
To achieve, whoever is going to listen to you, what
Yeah.
can be their takeaway about how beneficial their sleep is, or what they should do to achieve better sleep, or what does having better sleep mean to them? What should it mean to them?
Okay. I'll say an obvious catch will, of course, be to keep the phones away. But, I mean, I also sleep with my phone, so, But perhaps what makes phones tricky is the aspect of light, having that light in our eyes, especially when
These days I feel like I can't see very well at some point. There reaches a time where my sight can disappear.
Okay.
Right, I have to struggle to read stuff.
At night?
Yeah, be it at night or sometimes in the morning, right?
Yeah. I'll say, it's a consequence of both phones and computers in a sense. That light, that artificial light, even me, I came to realize there's a microscope. I failed to look through a microscope, and that was the only conclusion. Like, literally got refractory error, or what we call like short-sightedness.
Yeah.
Actually, long-sightedness in a sense as a consequence of this screen, these lights, these artificial lights, TV,
screen and whatnot.
So, well, the damage is done. But so keeping that light away, especially at night, the good thing, these phones these days, they have even a blue filter, because the blue color...
They even have dark mode.
Yeah, even have dark mode, which is also a good thing. What else can I say? Another good advice is when you wake up in the morning, at least do not look at the phone first. Try and get some sunshine. Step out, get that natural light. Because our body, there's what we call the circadian rhythm, which is how our body works. Our body knows when you're supposed to sleep. It knows when you're supposed to wake up. It has the biological clock.
Yes.
So the only way that clock works... Now, the problem with that, what happens is when you have the light of the phone on your eyes, it still assumes we're in the morning. So it does not want to sleep because it knows as long as there's light entering the eye, the pineal gland, which is that gland which is responsible for releasing the sleep hormones, keeps awake. And also in the morning, if you do not get that sunshine, you'll feel that sort of that sleepiness or that drowsiness because you have not got that sunshine to tell it like, yeah, it's time to wake up. And it's actually the hormone which is blocked by coffee. That's why people take coffee in a sense because the sleep hormone, it sort of it removes it, so you just feel like awake. Yeah.
That's why people take coffee to stay longer. Is that a good or bad thing? So, of course, I've heard about the coffee addiction as well.
Yeah.
And how that affects people.
Yeah, especially at night. I mean, it takes 8 hours for coffee to stay in our body. So, at least the last time you should take coffee should be like maybe around afternoon. But beyond that, it's not good because your body will not be responding to sleep well. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, at least morning, but...
All right. So amongst all very many things we had discussed to talk on, I grouped these things by the way in categories. So at first we've been talking about personal growth. Now we're going to go a bit into the society challenges. These are things about the society right now. These include some of your favorites. So I'll start with this one with AI automation looming. How can we redefine meaning and purpose in a world of fewer traditional jobs? So how can we really feel like we are involved and we're impacting lives, in a world where... so right now, like my substract, I've realized you literally read everything I write. So I think about something, then I prompt a large language model. Then it gives me something, then I redefine that to suit my personal experiences or what I think about it, then I publish, right? In a way, improves my writing, but then I also feel like I become lazy because then I just prompt, then I keep prompting to what I get. Then it does almost all the thinking and all the composure, which is easier my side, better my side, but I feel like I have less impact in there. I feel like, okay, it's not, there's no, the strong depth of me being the writer who will then go to a dictionary and look for the best synonyms and whatnot, the best English words to use. I am being helped by that because of AI. So do you feel like we can still redefine our meaning and purpose in this world?
Before I go to meaning, that point of using AI to write articles, I can ask you a question. Do you think we can still calculate numbers in our heads? And how do you think having phones and calculators before has impacted our ability to calculate?
That's a very good one.
Yeah. So it means...
Do you know these days, even if it's an easy number, right?
Yeah,
you'd want to be sure by
that's
a
the point.
stupid machine.
Calculating, memorizing something, you just have your phone. So, well, I guess everything has pros and cons. So perhaps the cons is that we are losing abilities which our ancestors had before. Yeah, and perhaps that will lead... Maybe you might say that's why there's a lot of dementia or like forgetfulness, because literally these are things... This is a work which the brain was made for, but it's being helped sort of, yes.
Yeah.
Now, the meaning, I will also mention Sadhguru, that famous Indian guru, who talked about, he gave us some interesting answer. He said, like, when AI comes and takes jobs, I believe it will be a good time for people because they'll have time to explore their spirituality, their meaning in life. Yeah, there will be less dependence. Now, of course, that will depend...
But I don't agree with that.
Okay,
right? Because you see, if AI then comes to take jobs, a majority of why people connect with their spirituality is because they're trying to find some sense of purpose. And usually people find their sense of purpose in the work they do, in the jobs they do. So if a machine can simplify all that, then people will be left with no option but to be as reckless as they can because their issues can be solved by everything else.
Perhaps that's what will happen. However, in a sense, I was trying to target the aspect of, yes, a lot of work, which is perhaps the work which is redundant itself, might be taken over by the machine, sort of like, I mean, all this industrialization, the machines in the works which has been taken over. However, works perhaps which will require more individual sort of a touch, or works which are more from a point of passion, perhaps someone will have to find a work. Now, the other question, of course, is the finances, yes, which is the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Where are people going to make money from? I don't know. Yeah, perhaps that's where now it will destroy lives because, I mean, as you said, our work is our meaning.
Yes.
To some extent, yeah.
But I feel like here it actually really speeds up your process of making money as a human being, because it is guiding you throughout how you should make the money you're supposed to do. Well, again, it goes back to what we've been talking about in the beginning, personal development and self-growth, which are key. So if you maybe think of them deeply and broadly, then you are better placed understanding or mastering a skill with all these new technologies and surviving with that. In my opinion, in perspective, that's what I see. Yeah. So again, in the face of misinformation and filter bubbles, can social media ever be a platform for genuine connection and understanding?
I mean, funny enough, I was just I read an article some time back on how a famous American musician, she was singing in the stage, then someone threw a phone on her face, like hit her on the face.
Yeah, I've seen, who else? We need Noji here.
It almost happens.
Yeah,
now the question is, why is that happening so often? And this concept of what it means to have a parasocial relationship. So we have reached a level as a society that we feel we know someone digitally. So it's not a social relationship, but it's a parasocial relationship. And that's what's happening in a sense, like, yeah, just because you follow someone famous and maybe you comment and you like their posts, does that mean they know you? Probably they don't know you. So, yeah, I don't think so. Like, coming using technology for building relationships, dating for that matter. I mean, yeah, I guess there are a lot of stories about the impact of Tinder and all these dating apps. So, yeah, I don't think there's any positive outcome from having a social relationship. Maybe a relationship which has already been there before and then you're reconnecting, but building a new relationship using social media. Yeah, I don't think that
I think it's possible.
Natural. Okay.
I think I've met cool friends of social media. I can't deny that. I've really met good people from. I feel like you can build a connection because then you're exposed to what someone thinks and the direction. And this goes in if you're already at a level where you are very well open-minded, yeah, you know that the coexistence of parallel opinion does not make you lose your sleep, then there you can build genuine connection, because then you have so much data about someone you can work with, data you'd have otherwise not had, right? So if I go through your blog, if you go through my Substack, you watch my YouTube channel, and you're a consistent follower, probably read my tweets a few here and there and see everything I'm on about, you get a sense of understanding of what drives me, my passion, and the person I am really. You can just modify and build that. I believe that's a better way of like really getting the connection.
Fair enough. I think I'll say we're both right in a sense. Yes. That part of like knowing someone, spending.
It can be like you said, pros and cons.
Yeah. But like perhaps the issue is generational. Like I'll say perhaps the generation like ours to some extent have lived the world before this sort of digital media. Mm-hmm. But now imagine the impact on this younger generation who only knew TikTok from the age of 7 or some even like. So perhaps the generational difference. You can decide when to put the phone away and want to go out there and meet friends. But a lot of youth, perhaps the ones who are more introverted, just feel that they can talk to someone and they can be, in touch with someone. Almost, also COVID-19 contributed, I guess, to the issue. Like digitally, someone you just know them through social media. Yeah, at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that's the new normal. Like we are creating our connections and understand. Do you judge people off their opinions on what they post online randomly?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm a big fan of Dr. Jordan Peterson. Yeah. Actually, it's inspired me a lot. And his post on Twitter, currently X, is quite inflammatory. So
true.
I'll say what makes specifically Twitter stand out. Okay, Instagram has its issues, but Twitter specifically is what we call the shadow in a sense. The way people express themselves on Twitter, it's like what in the psyche, what we call the shadow. Like someone can be as aggressive, as nonchalant, as unempathetic as possible on Twitter because they don't like. There's no responsibility. I mean, I can insult you. So what? What can you do? So it's but it forces you to build a tough skin, I guess, especially on Twitter. Instagram, for the same, likewise, it has its issues to do with the aspect of posting photos in a way of glamorizing life. You might think someone is living, I know, the best life, which makes us now feel bad about ourselves. What am I doing? Max posting about his recent Lamborghini. So like, what's up with my life? Yeah. So that level of now.
And then when it comes to Instagram, it's worse. When it comes to that, I think Instagram is then the place that will torture you mentally, right? You'll see this 23-year-old that has traveled 54 countries in 1 month. And you're like, you man, like, what paycheck are you on, really?
You can really imagine how that is quite abnormal to our psyche, because like just maybe 100, maybe 50 years ago, we could only knew at maximum 50 to 100 people. But now how many people do you know?
So many.
That is the thing. Like,
that's so true.
Our mind cannot literally handle it. Our mind has not been...
We know so many people, irrelevant.
Unnecessarily.
Yes.
Unnecessarily. That's the point. Like, our minds have not been built to handle that much information of thousands and thousands of people. Yeah.
And how big is a dog's mind?
Well,
so I've been told they have really small minds. That's why they'll forget stuff after maybe 3 or 4 days.
I guess, yeah. Being both a mom.
That's why they're constantly lovers, because they forget. If you beat a dog today, but tomorrow it might have forgotten that you beat it. There's that possibility.
Does it? Well, perhaps dogs are... Well, okay, let me also...
So now I'm trying to compare that to us now. The fact that now we are getting to know so many things at the same time.
That's true. Overload, yeah.
Overload of information.
Perhaps you have a point.
So in this world that has overload of information, how do you choose the right information? What do you think is the best way to choose the right information?
I would say, to me, that is perhaps the pros of internet. It's that you can really access information which the Aristotles, the Einsteins would be envious of how much information you can literally acquire in minutes. So, but through that level of having self-control, you can harness it. It's like, it's danger. It's like fire. Mm-hmm. You can use it for good purpose, or it can burn your house. So you can harness it. And I'll say it's the aspect of personal development, which was at the beginning of our conversation, is how you can utilize it for your own personal development. Because these days you can go and follow, personally, the things which helped me I mentioned Jordan Peterson, I mentioned the Steam Fairies, a lot of these podcasters, Andrew Huberman.
Yeah.
You can follow anyone. Yeah, you can follow anyone. You can listen to their podcast. You can acquire a professor's knowledge in seconds. So, if you are willing to ignore TikTok.
Well, TikTok also has the information, right? You'd probably find Huberman's podcast in bits that time.
Just agree to disagree.
What is your beef with TikTok? What do you think about TikTok?
Well, it has information, that's true. All these guys can
but that's the question I actually asked. In a world that has TikTok, that has so much faults and so much truth, because I can find you and your truth on TikTok, but as well as I can find someone like Jose, who is just trying to masquerade and make a shilling, telling people about doctor medicine he had not studied about, right? Then it will be upon me to either believe you or believe Jose. But because I know Jose, I'll be like, no, this is my boy. He's a video editor. There's no way he knows anything about medicine. So I will take a step back from believing what Jose has to say to then believing what you have to say, because you're a doctor in this case.
You have a point. But my beef with TikTok will be the aspect of how it impacts our memory. Actually, not memory, attention. Yes, that's scroll. Like, literally, can you imagine now this podcast, which I assume will be more than like an hour? Do you think a lot of these youth who just know TikTok can listen? That's the point. Like, the attention span has been destroyed so much that someone needs that will, that roller coaster.
That's it. Okay. Speaking of such uncanny things, we've been having battles on the internet back and forth on gender roles and gender norms. Does the pressure to conform to gender norms stifle individual expression and limit our potential?
Yeah, I will agree. So what aspect of individuation, which is the aspect of becoming who you are as a person, means you have to some extent abandon all the roles, all these identities, and all these sort of social masks to some extent. So I'm not saying that you have to abandon tradition, which is a bit different. Yes, tradition is there, But the only way you can grow is to, overcome. You have to make something which is not been there before to some extent. The aspect of creativity, the aspect of perhaps you had a background of maybe low socioeconomic status, poverty. That should not keep you away from coming out there and becoming a successful person. Yeah, to some extent. So, yeah, those things can keep us tight. Especially women, I guess it's quite confusing for everyone because this modernity, which you have all been, which you're all in currently, things are shifting left and right. There are all the kind of diseases which are byproduct of it, including in women, the conditions of infertility, conditions of stress. Like all these things have been as a consequence of what it means to be a human being whose functionality was mainly to reproduce and survive. Yeah.
I see. You think we are only here to reproduce and survive? Do you believe we should reproduce? Do you believe in the Father Abraham concept that we need to multiply as much as we can?
Well, before I jump on that trap of polygamy, I'll say yes. The aspect of
having children, as many as
having children. Yeah, I think to even make a meaning in life, as I said, the only way you can make meaning in life is to be responsible. And what a better way to be responsible than to have children? Because number one, they don't care about you. It has to be a bit unconditional love, at least beginning when you are still a parent. There's an element you have to sacrifice yourself, your ambitions, your desires for the sake of someone else.
Yeah.
So I'll say, having children is literally how you might say our body was programmed to have meaning, to have to find that responsibility in life, especially as men. And, I always say to some extent, women are luckier than men because God has given them a purpose from the get-go. By the time a girl has a menarche or that first period, like she already knows this is what it means to be a woman, this is life, there's pain every month, there's a reminders. But as a man, there are no active reminders. So
True.
A man can be lost perhaps till their 40s, if they can even make it out. So to some extent, women have been blessed. That's why the society, we already say like women mature faster. Yeah, because they always have that reminder like, you're here for a reason.
That makes sense. So you are running away from the monogamy conversation, but I want to ask.
I would like to say something about you can go ahead.
Is the nuclear family structure still relevant in a world with diverse living arrangements and evolving definitions of family? So right now, family can be a broad thing. It's no longer just blood water. Even though just to me it's still blood. My family are my blood. People I'm born with, born to, and the ones I'm born. Yeah.
Yeah. Weird enough, I have sort of a dilemma about that concept. To some extent, I appreciate a lot of successful people are byproducts of broken families, adopted. I mean, the Steve Jobs, there are a lot of cases of, they had a broken childhood, which perhaps catalyzed them to become who they are. But from the point of view of a parent, of course, you'll want to provide the best for your children in the sense of having that motherly and the fatherly presence. And I'll say society currently, globally, the challenge we have in is there's an absence of fatherhood. Yeah. Not just a man could be there, but a father to an extent, Because for a child, let me ask you this question. Mm-hmm. Which age bracket do you think are most violent? Or which age do you think people are most violent for that matter?
How old is this man? That age bracket, around 20, around 16 to 22.
Actually, the research shows from 3 to 5 years old.
Oh, yes.
And that's what you need.
Young girls are very violent. But
that's why you have child soldiers.
There's no clear definition of violence to them. So I don't want.
Well, that's the thing. Yes, that's the thing. That's why you have child soldiers, because they have not developed the capacity for empathy yet.
Yeah.
Or what you call the theory of mind.
Yes.
They don't understand what it means to cause pain. Yeah. Now that's why you need that parenthood to show them right from wrong. Yeah. A child.
Alright. So you still believe the nuclear family structure is relevant?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, how can we bridge the empathy gap between generations grappling with vastly different technology landscapes? Because this is what you actually mentioned.
Yeah.
That point. Now, yeah, these generations are a bit different. Say, right now, I think these guys are called what? Generation Z. For us, we're almost like millennials.
Yeah. It's alpha now currently. What?
Yeah. Alphas. So, yes, the empathy gap. Do you feel like, first of all, is it deteriorating the more time comes by? Do you feel like people are more empathetic with all these technologies and the landscapes? Is it deteriorating? And how can we bridge that gap to really, really bring back that sense of humanity that people want to talk up from the past?
I wanted to quote Erik Erikson, who was a psychologist, who said,
I like Erik Erikson.
yes, every generation, like they abused or they attacked the generation which is after them, but they are not the first to do it. So we always believe the generation coming after us are worse.
Yeah.
Perhaps there are facts behind it, but not necessarily. I mean, perhaps they are more empathetic. There's more awareness about mental health. A lot of stigmas. Female acceptance, as the society is more accepting of the woman and dominant roles as a human being. On the the opposite side, there's an element of what I can call narcissistic empathy.
Yeah.
Yes, where people are becoming too controlling now because they are keeping each other at check on the lens of empathy. So abusing empathy, which, ironically enough, you might say it's a counteractive to the aspect of growth mindset, because in a sense you'll have to let your son go out there and struggle, which means you have to remove the empathy for now. So it can counteract the part of you as a man, even as a woman for that matter, to go and grow. Requires a level of suffering. And empathy by itself, a mother will never want her child to suffer. See, while a father's role is supposed to be the one to make sure they go through that process. Yeah, so too much empathy disables society. And I guess it's also
too much empathy disables society?
Yes, especially men. I mean, there's a reason why I was saying the lack of fatherhood. The more society, there are a lot of single mothers who are trying their best. I mean, it's not their fault. But the absence of pushing the father to push the man out, and Africans, there are different societies where even the son will be taken out of their home and thrown to the jungle till they find back home, or the aspect of circumcision. All these were a ritual or a sign of growth, manhoodness, which needs to happen for a boy to become a man. Yeah, which has to, unfortunately, be kept away from the mother to some extent, yes. And that's what Freud called...
Do you believe these systems really had some impact?
Which systems?
A system like reaching, say, 18 years old and your dad kicks you out of the house, tells you go and figure out life yourself, as compared to him really working hard enough to make sure that your life is figured out.
Well, definitely. I mean, everyone has that innate potential, innate drive, which only them can figure out. Freud said a man only becomes a man when his father dies. Jung now said it might be symbolic. The father might not have to die literally. But that was the point of, yes, as a boy, until as long as you know your father is around, as long as you know whatever thing you do, you can be saved. It means you will not have that drive of responsibility. So, yes, that was crucial.
I see.
18, get out of the house. Yeah.
And figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of empathy and mental illness, is in the human experience version of this conversation, I want you to help us, can understanding the root causes of suicide help us move beyond stigmatization and build more effective intervention strategies? Also, what do you think is the root cause of suicide in this case? From both a medical perspective, is it just, okay, of course, maybe, let me listen to you.
All right, I will say every suicide is justifiable. However, it's not supposed to be done. Yes, life is suffering, as we have already said to some extent, and we all could have the reason to be like, yeah, I need to end it. However, that is the time when the growth happens, the time of going through that suffering, that sort of anxiety, that depression, that fear, and then from there on, you grow, you become harder, as what does not kill you makes you
stronger.
Exactly. So suicide now, I will not necessarily believe in the aspect of the biological theory of like, yeah, it's the hormones which are messing up. I'll say it's more of like yearning for that meaning. Now that every time when a person is yearning for the meaning is when they are most chaotic. When a person starts questioning, why am I here? Why did God create me? Why is God punishing me? All these concepts. It's a sign of progress. Like you have reached a level where you are not naive in a sense and you look at life as flowers, but you have not also accepted it. So in that aspect of the denial and the hate, someone can commit an act. It might not necessarily be quick suicide, but even alcohol. Someone can be drinking so much alcohol, suicide, but it's a slower suicide, or drugs, or sexual promiscuity, or crimes, whatever. Yes, it can be just, and they say women attempt, men commit suicide. Yeah.
Also,
A woman's more of like cry for help to some extent, but a man, by the time a man decides to do it, well, the chances of them finishing it off is high.
is there statistics to back this up?
Yeah. I mean,
There are more suicides in men than
no,
women?
not exactly. That was what I said. Yeah. Okay. True. There are more suicides. I can share with you the link. There was even in Uganda, literally, you can even Google. Yes, I think it was Daily Monitor, which posted. Yeah. Of course, I have my anecdotal some of the hearings here and there, but yeah, the statistics, I believe so. And not just suicide, by the way. Overdose, alcohol, those three.
So yeah, globally, men are more likely to die by suicide than women. But of course, the rates vary significantly across different demographics.
Why do you think so? Let me ask you, Mark. Let me turn the table on you.
Well, again, my experiences with people who have. Oh, actually, no. My experiences myself. I've done an attempt before. Wasn't successful and I was still very young. But because I was depressed, I felt like I was depressed, right? So, because again, we are in a matriarch society where the man has to be the outstanding one. So, you carry the burden of responsibility more than the woman, and maybe it gets heavier. So that could be the explanation. But then again, I've heard that it's more like a chronic thing. Okay. It just doesn't happen to anyone. So there's that explanation. Yeah, really understanding the root cause is key to me, and it's still vague in my mind. So I felt like it was depression, and then my baby comes in, then I'm like, okay, now that's. Then I move on. I've never really tried anymore. Even when I've gotten more harder problems, I felt like that's not the path I want. Like, I've found some bit of meaning and purpose as to why I should stay here, and as to why I should not have control on my life, because I didn't give it to myself. So there's that. But yes, I believe it's because of the stats. Then because of the society, it's a patriarchy society. So the burden.
You said matriarchy or patriarchy? I was not going to that point.
Patriarchy.
Okay, it's patriarchy. Okay.
Hey,
right.
Patriarchy. Not matriarchy. Patriarchy, really.
Is it good or bad? The fact that it's. Okay, I'm not saying I accept the patriarchy theory, but
it is okay. No, I'm not saying that's the reason for the suicide. That's my explanation of it all, because it's a patriarchy society where the man has to be directly responsible for the choices they make more than the woman. So it gets scary for the men. So that could be like maybe the easier route out, or the only solution they have in some cases. But to answer, is it a good thing that it's a patriarchy society? I think yes. I think women are designed naturally not to handle a few situations. This is in their design of things. This is how in their thinking. So it's only natural. Even when you go back to the Bible, which is responsible for so many people's upbringing. It really centers around the fact that the man will go and provide bread, right? And yes, going to the bush to look for food is not something easy. So that is just strength. Even when you just look at how the world is designed, who is doing the actual hardcore labor on a bigger percentage, you will not find as many women carrying rubbish on dustbins. You will not find as many women building, even if they can be engineers, but the actual bricks. And you find men in these types of jobs, and these are jobs that actually really run the world in, say, manufacturing, in well, innovations now are key. So maybe, I don't know if there are more people at Tesla. There are more women at Tesla than men. But for the core of it all, a man is designed strong. There's no way around it. It's in our nature, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing with me that information. There's a concept. There's a theory which says empathy system theory. Okay, empathy system thinking, that women, yes, are wired to be more empathetic. Men are wired to be more systematic, more logical. And I know they've had a condition called autism.
Yes.
So autism is like it's a spectrum. So an extreme level to the systemic thinking with less empathy, with almost totally no empathy, is what we call autism. So to some extent, yes, it's by nature, yes, women are more empathetic, men are more logical. This insect called the praying mantis?
Yes.
Do you know how it copulates and how it reproduces?
No, I just see it jumping
so
around. It's very scary.
The female invites the male through hormones. They call pheromones. There are some smells. So it attracts the male. It comes. Now it grabs it. So when it starts copulating or having sex, it starts eating the male. Yes. And then it consumes the male totally.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So it has to eat the male.
Yes, for proteins, for energy, while at the same time copulating. So in a sense, you might say, this world, the way God designed, as a man, yes, you provide, you reproduce. Yeah.
And then you get eaten.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is.
That's very, very interesting. Yeah. So how can we combat the objectification and commodification of the human body, particularly in relation to obesity and aging?
Wow. Obesity. The lifestyle, the aspect of behaviors.
Yes, this is on lifestyle.
Yeah, lifestyle. I'll mention a point which you asked me, which was a great point, the aspect of our attention. What do we do to succeed? So the aspect of commodity, the aspect of consuming things without needing it, is a consequence of perhaps the marketing, perhaps the arts, the branding.
That's why we eat breakfast. The story of how breakfast comes around is very interesting.
Let me hear. I've not heard of that.
So I forget the brothers, but they needed to make sales of commodities at some point, and they introduced breakfast. So they started advertising it like it was a necessary meal, but people were going away without it. People were only eating food when they were hungry. But because marketers sat down and decided this is another way to make more money by putting it in structure, that there is a first meal of the day that people should consume that is totally useless, and then it comes about, and then people started now they're programmed, right? Because once you see the TV commercials in the morning, you're supposed to eat something. That is how the family trades it. Then you go on like that and on like that. But ideally, the human body is you can only, if you are not programmed to eat breakfast, you'd only eat when the body asks for food, which is no longer the case. Now people are programmed to eat in certain times. I'm supposed to, by 10, 11, I'm eating breakfast. By lunchtime, by 1, 2, I'm eating lunch. By maybe 7, 6, 8, I'm eating dinner and supper. Even though you're not hungry, you have to find yourself in that. You just have your mind programmed to that.
That's quite interesting. The hunger. We look at hunger as something which is wrong. Like, I'm getting hungry, so I need to eat. Not exactly. It's a natural thing that You first have to consume what you have eaten. The body has to take it up, has to digest, and only then you go and eat. But you're like, I feel like I'm getting hungry. So that aspect of commodification, it's something which is a bit personal to me. Actually, 3 years ago, around the COVID times, I was weighing close to 93, almost 95 kilograms. So I had to put a personal effort to sort of prove some of these concepts which I was advocating for, of holistic living by fasting at least. So I have not had lunch. Once in a while I can have lunch when I'm with friends or when I'm visiting someone, but I do not have lunch normally. So breakfast, supper. So I give myself close to 8 to 10 hours to digest the food, to consume, to get really hungry, to have space for the next meal to come in. And that has been my routine for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And plus physical activity of even like walking for some long distance. I would say those main two, and then avoiding the sugary drinks mainly. Avoiding, I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't take milk mainly. Perhaps meat, I don't also take much meat. And yeah, I'll say now currently I'm 70. So yeah, I lost more than 20 kilograms. I'll say even that's what Dr. Kasen advocates for to some extent. So yeah, fasting and those things, it's not just about your self-esteem or your physical sort of the beauty part, like how you look like, but even your mental health. I mean, you feel good, you sleep better, you have less pain, because the more obesity means the body has a lot of inflammations.
Yeah.
So you have feeling pain all over the body. You are more flexible. You can do more things. I mean, the list goes and goes on. Even your sleep is better because you don't have that thing of snoring. Snoring as a consequence of obesity. I know they have come across it, but that means there's a part of the throat which is actually part of the nose which has a lot quite fat, so it blocks now the nose. So someone snores, and snoring means you're not breathing.
Let's just go back into the snoring.
Yes.
Yes.
So unless you have an infection, which is understandable, like whatever sinus.
So some people snore because they have an infection.
Yes, that's like one you have now, the sinusitis. Like there's some infection, there's some sort of fluids. But people who are obese, a lot of them actually have poor sleep because they cannot sleep. They suffocate. So some even sleep with gases. There's a gas, some like oxygen in their mouth to sleep. So you see, you have not slept well, you have waken up, you are sleepy. So all that, like obesity, you might say it's the punishment for this modern lifestyle. Everything which is bad comes from obesity. Yeah. And aging. Because why is it that people who are in the country, in the rural areas, are not having these conditions? How often do you meet diabetes, hypertension, cancer, even dementia, stroke, whatever? How often do you meet, and you see a 90-year-old digging his farm? But it's a modern problem. It's an urbanization consequence. Yeah, meaning you have to have more health expenditure. The hospitals, of course,
to make money.
Yes, even in COVID, I don't know what they remember.
Yeah.
The number one negative predictor or the negative comorbidity condition which made COVID worse was obesity.
Yes.
Yes, which actually.
I remember, the highest rates of people when we were having a lot of those mass killings, deaths that happened, RIP to those people, was because most of them were obese, according to the reports.
Yeah.
Anyway, so does the society pressure to constantly stay young hinder our acceptance of and preparation for the natural aging process?
Erik Erikson also has his what he call the psychosocial development. So every stage, I think life has like 8-9 stages. Every stage we have challenges where we have to overcome. So to some extent, being young, it's a stage. You might say that's from perhaps adolescence to middle age, where that's the time when we're most active, most productive, relationships, parenting, of course, career, money. Now, beyond that is the time when you have to start considering concepts like legacy, grandparenting, maybe estates, assets. So if you have, to some extent, have not worked hard or you have not put that effort, there will be that regret to always stay young, in a sense, to accomplish what you failed. Because as we said, life is a game in a sense. So if you have to accomplish, you cannot skip these steps.
Yeah.
It catches up with you. Yeah, that's the irony of it. So to stay young, now when it comes to women, perhaps it's a different there, which I would say now, where there's a lot of exploitation, female beauty, cosmetics, literally there's a whole medical specialty, plastic surgery, which had an altruistic purpose of healing people who have maybe burns. Because it was actually made around that time of World War II, so people who had like limbs amputations, all these things, so just to beautify such of these people. But now it has been overtaken by the cosmetic side, which is exploiting a woman's insecurity. Do you know, by personality-wise, women are more insecure than men? That's just natural. I mean, that one we know. Because that's like what you call the personality, the big five, they have more neuroticism, which develops around that age of adolescence for women. So now this industry is coming and they exploit that insecurity. You can look better, perhaps if you starting with makeups, of course, the extreme kind, bleaching skin, to these days the plastic surgeries. Well, it's like a slippery slope, because you might think starting with one can be mild, but before you realize, you become a doll. Like a lot of these Hollywood celebrities, you look at someone and they are just not looking natural, like vampire, like Madonna, just freak of nature. Yeah.
I've seen Madonna. Well, because of aging, of course, she has aged gracefully, but she's there.
Gracefully? I take that part back. I would say no. There's no graceful there. Grace is
How old is she right now?
Because she's like, must be in her now 60s, maybe late 60s.
So you think that's bad?
No, okay, she's alive, but the aging part she has not accepted because the plastic surgery, man.
Oh, yeah.
The face and all those things, yeah. Yeah.
So, is mental illness fundamentally a biological or society construct?
It's both, but more.
Of biological or society?
Yeah, it's both biological
and
societal, but it's more, in a sense, it's psychological. Yes, how it presents itself is in a biological sense. Literally, you can see dementia itself is actually a mental illness. It's part of mental illnesses. Depression, you can find, if you do a scan for the brain, there are differences how the brain works. Psychosis, or what's called schizophrenia. Yeah, the brain literally looks different. Addiction, as I said, there's a whole new part of the brain which starts growing. So yes, there's a biological part. Social, of course, there's the social aspect, in the sense that the aspect of stigma, for that matter. Who decides what's mental illness? There was a condition which, I think, was it called Dopamine, where people believed slaves in America, when they want freedom, it was actually a mental illness. Yeah, so it was part of the mental illness which needs to be treated. Why does this African slave want freedom? But the most important element is the aspect of the psyche, the unconscious, the what you call the complexes, the traumas. Yeah, those are the things which are the cardinal. But yeah, all of the three are like the foundation, or like they all contribute holistically to mental illness.
So how then should we approach how mental illness is treated?
I'll say the same, just to that answer. Through those three, there's an aspect of biological, and I'm not talking about medications. Workout, exercise. Actually, exercise is the best current prevention for dementia. It's the only known treatment, prevention, for dementia, preventive sort of a medication for that matter. It's exercise, working out. And the more you work out, actually, whether it's stress, whether it's the depression, the anxiety, I think you might have an experience. Like, the more you work out, the more you release that energy, the less the body has to like sort of blow it inside the body, for that matter. So you release that energy. You work out. The aspect of sleep, which is so cardinal, sleeping well, sleeping regularly, having a good sleep habits, how you sleep when you wake up. Of course, diet, nutrition, fasting, giving the body time to digest. Social media, giving that self-control, reading, letting the mind grow, having healthy recreational activities, not necessarily always resorting to hardcore activities, like pornography, which I guess it's also one of the plagues of the modern society. But like, yeah, I mean, hanging with friends, hobbies, creativity, there are healthier ways of releasing that boredom to an extent. Yeah, then perhaps hardcore.
So, is grief an inherently individual experience, or can it be navigated and shared through collective rituals and support systems? What do you think about grief in general, and how does it come about from a medical perspective? So that's where you'll answer if it's inherently individual experience.
Yeah, it is an individual experience, considering that we all grieve. Actually, grief is not just about someone who you knew, perhaps a parent or a loved one who passed away, but even you can actually grieve yourself. The who you were yesterday, you might be grieving who you are becoming to some extent. So, in a sense, grief is not necessarily actually about the other person, it's about you. It's about the memories, the future, the plans. It's almost synonymous with heartbreak. Someone goes through heartbreak, they literally feel like dying because they have built a whole system in the brain. Actually, there's a whole neurological system, neurons, which has to die off, which is, in a sense, grieving. So, yes, it's an individual experience. Yeah, I mean, it can be discussed socially, it can be shared through perhaps religious, like religious group settings, through anonymous group, even online to some extent, like Reddit, which I'm a big fan of. So yeah, it's both individual, at the same time it's both social, and it's the part which needs to grow. Going through the grief helps us to become the person who we are supposed to. Yeah.
Now we're going to go into the big conversation.
Wow.
What we talk about in some of the things that interest you are individualism. So I prepared some notes around there.
Okay.
So I'll ask, and I think we'll summarize with this part.
Wow.
Can true individualism exist in a world of interconnectedness and social influence?
Yes. Individualism, by its nature, it has its cons, like a lot of cons, of course. It's
Also, maybe you can help us understand individualism and hedonism.
Hedonism. Oh,
yeah, hedonism.
Okay. So, okay, let me start with the hedonism. Hedonism is trying to find a meaning in life through pleasure. So, hedonistic, like everything which is...
Like having sex.
Well, yeah, I mean, sex for its sake.
So you're saying porn stars?
Well, sex for its own sake. Now, sex God gave us for a purpose, to propagate.
I'm saying if I become a porn star,
yeah,
where I find my purpose in pleasure, because this is what they do.
But do people, are porn stars doing it for pleasure?
Yeah, they're doing it for pleasure.
Are you sure?
I've listened
maybe
to
some extent, maybe.
Yeah, I've listened to so
maybe.
much of their content on podcasts, and some cases, of course, some are raped, and then this is what they are affiliated to. It's like a trauma response, so they just go by that. But the big chunk of them is pleasure. They really just embodied the fact that they liked sex a lot.
Well, okay, perhaps, especially men, maybe.
Actually, the ones that I've listened to, I wouldn't listen to a male porn star speak, but I would listen to a female porn star. Like, I would want to know, like, why are you a whore? But then she would give a very, very extensive explanation as to why she chose her path.
I will, to some extent, disagree. Okay. Maybe, yes.
So for you think, okay, minus the money, which is the most important thing in the equation,
yes.
Yeah? There has to be a purpose that drives you, and then you start making the money. So in that purpose, I'm thinking for a porn star, it's pleasure.
How about exploitation? I mean, there's a lot of exploitation, especially at a young age. So, and it seems like America, almost everyone, perhaps 1 in 2, has had some history of child sexual abuse.
Yeah.
So we don't exactly know how much of those traumas impact. So finding life through pleasure, it's a slippery slope, because even how our brain works through dopamine, the hormone of pleasure, it's something which finishes quickly. So you do that act, you use it, so what? Now you go to depression. Now you look for more, because that's how we become sort of tolerant to it. If today I took perhaps 1 cup of whatever, let me say alcohol, even soda for that matter, the next time I need 2 cups to have the same impact. Next time 3. So just like pornography is a rabbit hole, someone starts by just watching an average normal sexual pornography. Before they realize they are going to dark holes. And only God knows what you can find in some of these rabbit holes. So it's something which finishes hedonism is not something which can sustain you for long.
Okay.
Yeah, it comes, it goes, whatever it is. And everything can be actually hedonistic as long as it has no purpose behind it. I'm doing it for a purpose.
Yeah. So yes. So can true individualism exist in a world of interconnectedness and social influence?
Though I said yes, but it's tricky because we are all social creatures. As I talked about the mirror neurons, like literally who
Right now,
we are.
Instagram informs
Yeah,
most of what we want to do.
exactly. I mean, all of us are talking about perhaps a lot of American pop culture because of just the exposure. We have been exposed to it so much that we feel like we belong there. So it's hard. It's something which cannot be separated out. But I'll just talk about individuation.
Yeah.
Individuation is, now it's from Carl Jung. It's sort of a synonymous with close to self-actualization, aspect of becoming who you are. It's a process which makes you an individual. So you find your true self. Do not conform to the society in the sense that you find the we, which is now what we can call as the mask or the persona. We as Arsenal fans, we as Muslims. So it can be we as this tribe, we as this political organization, we as this, being part of the we. But it's all about finding the me and not the I, which is more of the ego part, but more of the self, the true I. So individuation is that process of finding who you are as a person, unique to you. What makes you I? Actually, let me just define the word individual. The word individual comes from, if you remove the in, is individual. So it means something can be divided. But a person, something which is in, can never be divided. You cannot split mark to atoms and find the mark to some extent. Yes, so it's in.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's that unique part of who is you.
So the independence, the personal fulfillment, all that.
Yeah, all of that you can only find them by connecting with your true self. Yeah.
Okay. So do you think it's important for individuals to value goals beyond pleasure?
Yeah, it's certain. I mean, literally, you do not wake up in the morning for the sake of pleasure. Like there has to be that drive, which is.
But I think the goals just help with the drive. But the utter cause of it all, they're just really useless. And this is something I've observed in my life for a very long time. Say, driving cars, right? They've not been my personal cars, but the thrill of, say, driving an expensive car, say a Range Rover or what, like if that could be your goal. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen my friends who've bought them, and then after you buy it, and then what, right?
Well, I mean, that's true because, you have.
So that's how I look at it as well.
Let me ask you a question. Why do people cheat in relationships? And even let me modify it in a way to say, let me say a married man cheats with a woman. Would he marry that woman? Would he leave his wife? And often, even if he leaves the wife, he will not stay with that woman.
That's true.
Why? It's because
I think it's a feeling. It's like smoking a cigarette, right?
Yes, often the desire is more pleasurable than doing the act itself. And actually, that's even how our brain is. Literally, our brain has two systems. What we desire is not necessarily what we enjoy. Yes. So whether it's sex, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, you might not enjoy the alcohol. I mean, hangover literally disturbs you. So it's the desire, which is the part of the brain, which comes before that part, of liking. Because we have to grab something. We first have to get something, then you can decide. But probably you not even like it.
Yeah.
So it's in a sense, the goal might have been the desire of the fame, perhaps Instagram, some nice shots with my car, or did you like it? Probably not. Yeah, so, I guess the goal has to be modified, especially the older you grow, the more experience you get, the more you change your goals. And the goal should be something which is not attainable to some extent, like a vision. Companies have visions. It's a bit something which is possibly not achievable in your lifetime, but it aspires you to have now objectives and daily tasks and routines to be like, if I want to lose this weight, let me wake up every morning, maybe for some, which is what I do in a sense, like just 2 push-ups, at least 40, 50, for 3, 4, 5 years. And you can really see how the impact of that compounding in after years of doing something. So it's something which probably is not achievable, or it's achievable after maybe 10 years or 5 years, but it's the fact that it gives you that North Star to look at, be like, this is what I want to be. So it's not supposed to be something which is also too close, that like my goal is to buy perhaps an iPhone. I mean, yeah, perhaps it can help you to motivate you to some extent, but can it really make you work like a donkey for like 5 months? Probably an iPhone, you can be like, but I can use a smartphone. But like my goal is to have, to leave a legacy, or is to be healthy, or is to be financially free, or is to be a good father or a good mother, to have a healthy relationship, to be close to God. All these things are things which require long-term investment. Yeah. So just like investing in money, it's the same thing.
So do you believe the pursuit of pleasure is ultimately compatible to a fulfilling and meaning life lifestyle?
It's absolutely opposite. It's literally it's the opposite of that compatibility, because as I said, it's you got the iPhone, so what makes you now work tomorrow? So it has to be something which is beyond this pleasure.
Yeah.
And it's the concept of, I would say, even heaven, like working hard and being religious and praying and doing all these activities, is that after life, just only after you die, do you really achieve that promised land, to make sense. So it's something, it has to be after.
Yeah.
Yes, it can't be just for that pleasure, for that quick pleasure. It's like having children now. What pleasure do you really get from having a child? You might even die before they become adults, so you might not even get that pleasure, but it's the satisfaction which is better. So even these two hormones, dopamine, which is for pleasure, but serotonin, which is the hormone for satisfaction. Someone to say, I'm satisfied. And it comes out normally when we eat food. Actually, the stomach produces a lot of serotonin. That feeling of eating food is what makes us feel satisfied. Like, I've been hungry, I eat food. You feel that pleasure, which is different from the one of dopamine, that the one of like orgasm, for that matter, that release, that high. Because that one is more of like it's like a V curve. It climbs up and then it crashes. But this one is more of slow and gradual. And it's the one which actually goes down when people are having this condition of depression or the major depressive disorder. That's why some of the drugs they're given are actually serotonin drugs. Because it's not that they are lacking the happiness, but what they are lacking is the satisfaction, the meaning, which is deeper. Now the drugs perhaps can help to get some serotonin, but they will not solve the equation or the source of the equation, for that matter. Yeah.
Let's see. So, how can we foster responsible entrepreneurship that prioritizes social impact alongside profit? This is because, of course, this leads into profit is where people draw the line between individualism and hedonism. Yeah. So, from your perspective of life, how do you think we can foster responsible entrepreneurship that prioritizes social impact? Yeah. But also, of course, say like my podcast, right? I am having as many conversations with as many people as possible. So right now I'm speaking to you with a very, very rich knowledge from a medical perspective, but I'll speak to, say, an engineer. And you don't really have to be an industry expert on a subject, right? You just have to share your perspective on things. True. So there's some impact on that. I know that my friends, I'll start with just the guys who edit the podcast. They give me some feedback. Sometimes, this guy talked on this thing and it really changed my mind on this. So I know that there's some impact there from just the conversations, let alone when Kenneth was still having some conversations here. I used to love, and because I used to now challenge my mind on so many broader topics on stuff with some of the guests, right? So that, but at the end of the day, of course, we're trying to make a profit, because then the podcast also tries to advertise the studio, and then we make money from that. But first is the impact, right?
True.
So something like that. So,
I will start with the aspect of profit. I would say there's no shame in profit. In fact, that's actually why we are here today. Is because of the aspect of, for that matter, let me say, your dad had to persuade your mom. So we had to sell. There has to be, so there's no shame in that. And I will go against any grain of so-called non-profit or charity-based. It's not my field of work. It's the aspect of economical, but I would say it's what put the African continent in a lot of this crisis, so much dependence on philanthropy, charity, non-profit. It also sounds nice, but that's not the reality. Like, yeah, you have to sustain the business, you have to pay the bills, you have to pay the rent, you have kids, you have to pay. So there's nothing wrong with that. However, initially, or at least starting up, it's an experience of mine. When we started the company, what attracted me to business from medical side, for me to switch to business, was venture capital to some extent. I saw the money moving in the world, man. That was before COVID, like 2019, also around COVID time. Like, money was just shifting. You hear Cheaper Cash has raised 300 million. You're like, what the? So the money was there. And I think it's fair, as I said, the amygdala, the part of our brain, or the emotional part, the monkey part, is the part which is pushing us to do our things. So it was a motivator. But when you go to entrepreneurship, you realize how hard this thing is. This is when it forces you now to be like, why am I doing this? Like, why don't I give up? So all that element of going through the struggle, going through the suffering, going through the failures, the rejections from investors, from customers, from partners, that gives you now, for you to, that inward meditation on why am I doing this? And if now that meditation itself, the answer has to be autotelic. Now, autotelic means you have to find the pleasure in the act itself, in the sense that it should not be means to an end, but it has to be the end itself. That you have to enjoy what you are doing to some extent, which now forces you to be patient for the results to come.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'll say the sweet spot is having that level of both having the profit mindset. You're like, yeah, I'm trying to create a value, because at the end of the day, profit means value. You are offering something of value to people that they're willing to pay for, which there's no shame in that. But at the same time, the value itself you're creating should be something which is individualistic to you, should be something which is, I don't like the word passion for one reason, actually. The word passion is tricky. I don't know. What do you think about passion?
Misleading.
Okay, perhaps.
Yeah, I find like passion, it's not enough for you to achieve, say, purpose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that I like to skate does not guarantee that I'll be a very good skater, right? If I don't put in but it's a driving force, right? So passion helps, maybe even on the days where you feel like you wouldn't do it, it's something you can just come and talk. Say I have passion for podcasting, but
Yeah.
it's a bit misleading because this podcast is not yet profitable, right? But then there's passion for it. So me and my partner are always on debate: should it continue or shouldn't it continue? Something like that,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So things like that.
All right, fair enough.
But for you, what do you think about passion?
There's a book called Be So Good That They Can't Ignore You. And that concept is the concept which I believe in a sense that it's not about passion, it's about mastery. Now, this podcast, as you said, might not be bringing profits, but the more you master something, the more you master a skill, the more you get some level of autonomy or freedom, and the more you find a purpose. So a purpose is a better concept than a passion.
Yeah.
That is something which you find bit later. And our society, in a sense, you might say we are being cast with this technology in the sense that we are looking for the passions. My passion in medical school was to become a filmmaker. Yeah, I was a big fan of movies. But looking back at it, it was more of like a childish dream in the sense that it was not something I earned.
Yeah.
But I have not put the effort, I have not put the time or the 10,000 hours to be like, I'm so good at this work, then I can now find sort of the purpose. How can I use now that skill I've acquired for good to some extent to create an impact, to create profit? But because impact even involves creating financial impact on your family and loved ones. So yeah, I'll say mastery. You have to like put in the hours, put in the shift to really master something, to become Joe Rogan, for that matter, of Africa.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, Joe Rogan did about 1,000 episodes before Spotify noticed him, but we're on the track. We're about hitting 200 now.
Wow.
So, if death is inevitable, how can we make peace with our own mortality and live life to the fullest?
You know, the concept of death is something which is so...
What do you think about death?
It's quite ambiguous by its nature, because you would have assumed... Let me give you a scenario now. You hear there's maybe a madman shooting people on the road.
Yeah.
Would you go there? Of course not, because you'd be like, nah, why would I want
Well,
to?
but I'm not really very.
Like,
I'm very
or
curious.
like you hear a gunshot for that matter, like,
Oh, well,
like,
I'll hide.
you'll hide.
Yeah.
That's natural. We avoid. The thing about death is like we know,
It's coming.
but we just have to avoid it. So in a sense, our our conscious, to make sense, we have to ignore, we have to grieve. We know our loved ones are dying, but we have to live. We have to move on, because otherwise it would have been so huge. Now for some people, it's becoming so present that it paralyzes them. Just the fear of death. I had to some extent that experience in a way that whenever I think about the future, especially when I now took this pathway of entrepreneurship, I'd be like, okay, these are dreams I have, these are ambitions I have, I will reach them. Then, to some extent, sometimes I have that blurry vision to be like, what about death? Like, I mean, even if things go right, still, you never know. And to some extent, I had to desensitize myself, like, I had to remove that fear. I read a lot about death. I read a book where some doctor who was finishing his residency or like master's, who was diagnosed with a terminal cancer, lung cancer. He was literally studying. He studied for 15 years. When he's about to finish, he's also going to die. So he wrote about his experience. So that, it also gave me a picture of like, yeah, something which you have to also overcome that fear, but you have that strong values at the same time, the aspect of meaning. Because if you don't have now that purpose, well, I mean, suicide is what you might as well fasten the process, because you're like, well, I'm going to go either way. Why don't I do it? So you have to put that individuation, that 10,000 hours of mastery, to find the reason why, like reason for existence, for that matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why am I doing this? Why am I alive?
So, have you made peace with your own mortality? Yet?
I hope so. That's the point. Yeah, I will. As much as I would
Are
like
you
to say
ready to
yes,
die?
as much as I would like to say yes, I think I would say yes to some extent. That the purpose which I have found, the impact I have found, which is beyond the money, is what keeps me sustained, in a sense that, like, in case it happens, at least I have done my work, I've contributed. I have some other, of course, a lot of things I want to do, but still, the fact that I'm even here today, it's already giving, like, yes, I've done enough. Perhaps this
You've
can help.
left a recording on your perspective
Exactly.
to life. And
This could help, like, I don't know, 5 more people.
Now that brings us to the very last question, which is, if the director yells cut anytime soon, what legacy would you have left behind? Or what is that legacy you hope to leave behind?
Yeah, it's a question I really thought hard about ever since I was young. And I would like to be remembered as a teacher. Teaching is my passion, if I use that word, perhaps a better way is that's like, something which I'm passionate about, because I've sort of been blessed with the ability to consume a lot of information and understand it, and then perhaps simplifying it for others to also grab those concepts. So if I can be known as a teacher, someone who taught, as someone who guided, and even that's what Vigilant Living is at the end of the day. We don't really do any medications, we don't operate, it's just we help to guide you, in a sense, to push you towards that direction. And that's all I would say. I would want to be known as a teacher, or a philosopher for that matter, which is, I guess, is the same as teaching in the sense,
Yes. No. Boys, no hands to ask some questions.
Let me ask you about, how did you come to the world of podcasting, in the sense of, like, okay, there's interviewing part, but it seems you're not just an interviewer, in the sense, like, you literally dig deep, you do your research, you spend your time, you ask thoughtful questions. So where would you say that comes from?
So a bit of inspiration from our fellow podcaster, Kenneth Matovu, and also international podcasts, Serotonin. So majorly, the idea of this podcast reaches from, Kenneth wanted to do an individual podcast in the beginning, right? So he's also a very well-read man, I like to assume. But sometimes just they're lying to us with AI prompts, really. It's it's tricky. But so his perspective to life, I picked so much interest in the conversations he was having with people who are setting him up to have these conversations, right? Then I realized what media and most other YouTubers, and this is not to throw shade to any YouTuber in Uganda. So I realized the trending content, what they were doing and what we're doing, yeah? so what they're doing is a bit fun. It's entertaining. You'll watch it, you'll laugh. I watch that stuff. I enjoy it. But then what we're doing is more like it's antiquity. You'd come back to this very episode 10 years from now. So my child would come back to this episode and they will still appreciate it the same way I'm appreciating it because of the information it has. So that value, that kind of value and purpose is why then you have to like really, to us, we're doing the podcasting for life, right? I'm going to be hosting big conversations for the rest of my life. So it's only important that every other episode is better than the previous one. So that informs how much research you put into it, the selection of guests. This is why even for you, for your case, to me, it was very, very important. I give myself some more time, right? So the other time we had to redo it, but I realized I was not as ready because then there were so many things we had to cover. And most of those things you have to really at least be equipped on them, something to just have a pushback, something like that. Yeah, but really to us, it's just sharing knowledge. Also just podcasting every day here. Once you leave podcast set, I feel good that I've had a conversation with you, and that's fulfilling. That man has probably trained something new on the lighting, so that's also fulfilling to him. So it's a sequence, minus just the conversations, also the technical bit. This is where we assess more like quality control, that this can go wrong into video production, things like that. We have this to experiment. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. You have mentioned the aspect of your child also a couple of times in the podcast.
Yeah.
How much do you think that, should I say, level of perhaps responsibility has contributed to your resilience?
Well, a lot. I've spoken before in a previous podcast with, I think, Isabel, where I said I did attempt a suicide attempt. I've also mentioned that again here before, but because of the boy, I managed to survive. So, yeah, he's majorly the reason I'm alive. Wow. Like, because I've really done it all, had all types of sex, been everywhere I want to be, and but I am still focused on the fact that, you know what, I have to raise a child, and they have to become this person.
Oh, okay. So how would you like to advise people who are men, for that matter, who are going through that sort of roller coaster of life?
Are you just having a child? I'll tell you, I'm not the right person to advise you, but...
No, I mean, not per se, but in a sense, like the experience, because we as men, to some extent, already have that fear of being a parent.
Yeah. I
even
feel
dealing
though
with women.
It's case-based, right? Because for me, I'll tell you,
yes,
I was very excited to have my child, which was not the case with my partner. They were very worried about the child. But me, but because, again, fear is such a weak emotion. I despise it all the time. Right? I am that person who is just set, go to ready. So that's the thing people have to beat, fear of it. Right?
Yeah.
It's there, you're ready, and set, go. Once you beat the fear around it, it's like learning how to swim. There is really no complexity in knowing how to swim. There is literally nothing you do. But the scare and the fear of water is what fails so many people. Like, something can happen. So once you beat that in your mind that nothing's going to happen, like I can move from point A to point B, then you can follow through the steps. So there's no like metric, there's no like book, there's no like guidelines to how you're going to parent a child.
Yeah.
Because, man, we have seen it all. The richest of all with all the money have produced the worst of children with all these types of problems. So there's no like guide of it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
But once you beat the fear and then you're ready for it, I feel like you can achieve whatever vision you have with your parenting.
Yeah, that's a cool answer. Because I was going to ask more about these days we hear this pop time of a planned kid. Like, a lot of parents put in their time to create.
What do you think about the planned? Well, for me,
planned movement. Yes, planned kid movement.
it's important. I've been so reckless in my life that. But because my dad was very intentional with where you're going to school, what you have at home, maybe in terms of computers, the exposure was very instant, right?
Yeah.
So, and that has saved me some little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah? I probably have just whisked myself away with all the mistakes I have done, but because of some bit of foundation like that. So now imagine a fully complex planned child, right? You have business, you are planning, you are educating them in that line, and from here they're moving there. This is how the greatest of companies have been built. They're mostly family foundations.
Yeah.
You get that. So that is the definition of a planned child. If it has to get to that extreme big, that's the
So
bit
like
of it.
you are on that, like
That's
yeah.
So like a child comes and takes over a whole laid out production house.
I can perhaps give you an a research. Is it a research or anecdote? Anyway, it said that like the best parents or the best time to become a parent is between the ages of 20 to 30, maybe 35. 30 actually. To be a parent to a child.
Well, I had my child when I was 22. So
Beyond that, it's not the product, the outcome is not favorable just because of one reason. The younger parents are, the more negligent they are, the more you are letting the child do their things because you also have your things to worry about. But the older you become, the more anxious you become, the more scared you become of the world, the more you want to control that child.
Yeah.
Hence, in a sense, disabling them, be like, yeah, I have everything, what are you worried about? And now,
They
you want,
become-
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
like
yeah,
you don't give them that chance to grow.
To grow.
Exactly,
For
yes.
self-personal development. I
They
hear
have to
you.
find their own way. Yeah. And if, but I guess that's a consequence of a lot of rich, the rich, especially for men.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, as a man, to not be given that chance to mature. Yeah, it's a man-child situation. Is what Freud calls the Oedipus complex, where Oedipus it's a story, Greek story of a man who killed his father and married his mother. It's a Greek mythology. But anyway, it's based on the concept of you failed to become a man by being with your mother, but you also wanted to kill your father for that matter. Yeah.
Oh.
So you can look at it any way you want.
Yeah.
So it's a concept of a man-child. A 30-year-old is still living at home, still attached to the mother. What, like, every stress. Even a 40, it's a crisis of society. I would say, like, yes, the majority of men are that way. Then who are women going to marry? Yeah. And that's an issue actually with women, because I've met a lot of them recently. Like, yeah, there are no men. Like, they're saying, where are the men? So I wonder.
I've seen the stories. Do you believe in it?
Yeah, I do, kinda. Though I would say it's also a bit natural, because the 80-20 rule, in a sense that, yes, always few men take it all, which is just natural theory, to make sense. So maybe modernity has worsened it, but has always been that way, to some extent. Because the male world, unlike the female world to some extent, it's brutal. It's literally nature, in the sense of survival of the fittest. And only the few who make it out, to some extent, take it all. Yeah. If you look at life as clinical as possible without emotions, it's just literally, if you look at nature, yeah, it's a survival of the fittest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who survives in the jungle?
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you believe the capitalistic way of living is the most ideal way?
I'm a bit conflicted. I'm a fan of capitalism in a sense of, like, yeah, the aspect of personal growth, because it forces you, there's an incentive. As we said, we as humans have to have the pleasure things, in a sense, to incentivize us to go out there. Maybe it's women, I want to like this woman, or it's the money, it's the phone, whatever. Like, we need to have that incentive, which capitalism offers. It gives you the chance to be like, you can be from rags to riches. You can be at the lowest. You put effort, you make the connections, you build a company, you make partners, and you can be up there tomorrow. So it offers that chance of growth. So that made it a big fun to me. Unlike the communism, which is all about equality, in the sense, like, you don't have to work. It's all is given to you. So it's like, one is more of a mother's dream, the other is more of a father's dream. Which makes capitalism also cruel, because by its nature, it's already few only succeed. What happens to the rest? That's the question, perhaps. So you can look at it perhaps from a clinical way, in the sense of, like, unempathetic, cruel, or empathetic sense. Yeah, not everyone makes it out of the jungle, for that matter.
Survival for the fittest.
Survival of the fittest, exactly.
All right, Yacoub. I don't know if you still have other questions, but that's it from me. Thank you.
No, not really. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, and
yeah, you should. I'll probably have you back again now
right.
that you. First of all, you stay around here,
Yeah.
so anytime I want to have some perspective, come back to the podcast. But anytime you have something, maybe you're working on something else you want to launch to the world,
Definitely.
this space is here.
Definitely.
Thank you.